don't talk about your stories until you've written them. Hi, I'm Herne, author of Fires of the Dead, and this is Daily Writing Advice. So as tempting as it can be to discuss your ideas for stories with your friends, with your family, with other people, I would really caution against this. Because talking about the stories you're going to write, but haven't actually written, can delude you into thinking that you have actually written them. So a big part of the reason for this is that if you tell someone the story that you are thinking of writing, or maybe that you have just gotten 10% of the way into, and they say, wow, that's a really amazing story. That sounds really cool. For me at least, part of my motivation for writing that story is going to go down. And the reason for that is because it's very, very easy to convince yourself into thinking that them approving of your idea is getting you the approval that you want for writing that story in the first place. Because think about it, if they are already impressed with your creativity, with your intelligence, with your wisdom for coming up with this great book idea, then why do you actually need to write the book? They're already satisfied with the idea. They already think that you're cool. Where is your motivation to actually finish the darn thing and actually get it out there in the world? Whereas if you kind of keep it a bit sort of, this is a bad word because it has sort of derogatory connotations, but if you keep your story ideas pent up inside you, it's like a pressure cooker. It's going to mean that when those ideas finally explode out of you and get onto the page and become a book, they're going to be so much more impactful because you are just desperate to tell that story. You're desperate to get it out there in a real book form, to get it into readers' hands, to see their reactions to the final product. I know for me personally that whenever I talk about story ideas for books that I haven't written, and I'm doing it from a place of just wanting approval, wanting recognition for my creativity, wanting friends to go, wow, that sounds amazing, it kind of makes my motivation for writing the thing peter out a bit. On the other hand, because I'm always about playing devil's advocate here, there are times when it is productive to talk about story ideas for books that you haven't written. For example, I have one friend with whom I will brainstorm a lot of my books with because he almost always helps me make them better. Whether that's as simple as him being like, well, would society really evolve this way if this was the kind of conditions that you have set up in your fantasy world? Or whether it's as major as being like, oh, no, this plot totally wouldn't work at all. There's a massive hole here. Sometimes it's good to have a few people to discuss ideas with so that you can avoid any potential plot holes or any pitfalls with that book. Having said that, again, it's all about intentions. So if you are going to talk to your friends about a story that you want to write, and you're coming at it from a place of, I want them to like the story and to tell me that it's awesome, you're probably going to be quite counterproductive in your approach because you're not really interested in making the story better. You're just interested in making them think of you better. If, on the other hand, you come at it from the open and non-egocentric perspective of wanting them to critique your story, wanting them to point out areas you can improve, then it's probably going to be very productive. It's probably going to be very helpful. So just if you are going to talk to someone about your story, consider those two angles to it. Consider, am I coming at this from a selfish perspective of wanting to boost my ego, or am I coming at this from a perspective of wanting to make the art as good as it can be? Ultimately, I think it comes down to this. And this is another big reason that I probably should have touched a bit on more earlier, but sometimes another issue with this as well is not that it will decrease your motivation for writing, is not that it will, make the story worse on the page because you feel like you've already told it. But a lot of the times, talking about your story before you've actually written it is the equivalent of just talking the talk, but then not actually walking the walk. I see some people who are like, oh, I want to write the greatest fantasy novel of all time. But then their actions just don't map to that ambition. They're not putting in the hours. They're not actually writing the thing. They're just more content with talking about their ambition rather than actually living it out. And, I'm not trying to call out anyone here. I'm not trying to, provoke you or whatever, or trying to say that what you're doing is wrong. But I would just encourage you to think about your intentions and think about whether you are talking about your ideas to get approval, to fake it till you make it sort of thing, or if you're doing it from a place of wanting to actually improve the art. So in conclusion, you kind of have two choices as a writer. You can either talk about the stories that you're going to write, but not actually write them, or you can do my preferred approach, which is to write the stories, get them as good as they can be, and then talk about them. Because by that stage, people will really want to listen. I suggest that you do the latter. So, that is our episode. I've been Jed Herne, and this has been Daily Writing Advice. Thank you so much for listening. Now go and write, don't just talk about, extraordinary stories. See you next time.